Now we come to the third unit, and it's a very beautiful unit called the evolution of the earth in the chapter of Earth, 9th standard, SSC AP, Social Studies syllabus. The evolution of the earth. Scientists are still debating how our earth was formed. Most scientists are of the view that earth began to form around 4.5 billion years ago. 4.5 billion. A billion is 100 crores. So 400 to 450 crore years back. That's a huge time gap. Length. The earth has reached its present form through several phases. So in the beginning, the earth was not like how the earth we see around. It began as a ball of swirling, swirling, swirling dust. Swirling is moving. Dust and clouds, and passed through a molten stage. Molten means liquid. MOLTEN means liquid. At that time, the earth was very hot, and was constantly bombarded by massive rocks. Massive, MASSIVE, means huge rocks, and other materials from the space. So when they bombarded, there was a huge friction, and due to gravity they are all sticking to the earth, and the huge friction caused that huge temperature. In this way, the size of the earth grew. So earth grew and grew. All that materials from the space came and stuck to the earth due to gravity. The earth was so hot that it was molten. So obviously when something is heated, it comes in a liquid form. So all these heavy metals also, they became molten, they became liquid, in hot liquid form. If you boil a thick soup containing many substances, you may observe that the heavier particles tend to go to the bottom and lighter particles come to the top. You know that. So lighter particles come to the top. These lighter particles cool. So after time it cools. It cools down. It loses its energy, internal energy, heat. Temperature comes down. These lighter particles cool at the top and form a layer of crust. CRUST, crust, like the cream of milk. So on the top, thin layer of crust. Thin means compared to the huge size of the earth. These lighter particles cool at the top and form a layer of crust like the cream of milk. Similarly, while heavier substances formed the part of the molten core, lighter substances rose to the surface and cooled. So the heavier particles were, in the liquid form. Slowly an upper crust of lighter and cooler materials formed covering the molten interior. So it's so interesting. The lighter particles came up, the heavier particles were in the liquid stage. The lighter particles cooled down and became solid, and they formed the crust. As the earth's interior continued to cool, it went on cooling. It contracted. So when something cools, its size decreases. So it's contracted and stuck like that. And the outer crust wrinkled. So when you contract, it doesn't contract smoothly. This is a very important point. It wrinkles, So when you wrinkle means up and down. You have these wrinkles on the face, they say. For old people have wrinkles. The flesh has gone up and down. So like flesh on an old man's face, the face of the earth had wrinkles, because it cooled and did not cool uniformly. So as the earth's interior continued to cool, it contracted, and the outer crust wrinkled, WRINKLED, forming ridges, which means ups, mountains, and basins, low areas, which became oceans later. So this is a wonder point. So when you next go to the beach and see the oceans, you must imagine and realize that these oceans were formed by that kind of huge, large-scale processes. The atmosphere of the earth consisted of different kinds of gases, including water vapor. So water was in the gaseous form, and there were other gases. Most of these gases were such that life as we know it could not have survived on it. So those gases were not helpful to life then. It didn't have oxygen, which is necessary for us. It took a long time for the air we breathe to develop. So this is another wonder question. How did oxygen fill the atmosphere? The rain fell heavily. So it went on raining, and filled the great basins on the earth's crust with water. Thus the oceans were formed. So we have understood something fantastic. We have understood how mountains were formed. We have understood how oceans, these are one kind of mountains, and how oceans have formed, how earth was formed, and how it took a long time to cool, and finally it became cool. For perhaps one half of the long span of Earth's history, this whole process, you won't believe it, took more than 200 crore years. So it's not as if morning it was hot and evening it became cool. It took 200 crore years to cool. The planet Earth remained till then, and the planet Earth remained barren, which means no life, lifeless. Then life appeared, first in the oceans. So you know that life first appeared in the ocean. Slowly, you had those living entities which were both in ocean and water, ocean and land, and then slowly the land animals and living entities came. It slowly evolved into diverse plants and animals, including human beings. Human beings, as we have seen, they came 1 lakh years back, over millions of years. So over millions of years, the life came and filled the earth with almost hundreds, thousands of species of life. The whole earth has so much life. So that is a beautiful unit 3, the evolution of the earth. So now we got a very deep understanding of how this earth was formed, how the one kind of mountains were formed, the ridges, the wrinkles, and how the oceans were formed. So we have got the essential concepts of this unit.